so you ran the interviews, you collected the customer feedback, you thought you really knew what your customers wanted, but the product still flopped. Does that sound familiar? It might be because your customer research was lying to you. It's not that customers are dishonest, but what they claim they'll do is not always what they will actually do. So in this video, I will help you separate what your customers say they'll do from what the customer will actually do so that you can build a product that users don't just praise, but that they purchase. It is time to rethink how we collect and listen to customer feedback when nearly 50% of American customers are saying they feel ignored by the brands that are out there today. So that tells me that we as brands and marketers are not doing a good job listening to them, and this might be one of the reasons. There is something called a say-do gap. It is the space between what your customers say they're going to do and what they actually do. And again, this is not because our customers are inherently dishonest or that they lie when they're giving us their feedback. It's that they may not be the best judge of what they're going to do in the future. And so the survey or interviews may not be the best form of collecting that information. So when would I rely on interviews or survey as my best form of collecting information? There's 3 instances. The first one is if I'm planning for something that hasn't happened yet and I don't have any other source of data. So there was an instance where I was helping a brand plan for upcoming regulation. There was regulation proposed to remove an ingredient out of their product, and they needed to know what the customer was going to do. So we did a survey because there was no other information on hand to figure out, are the customers going to stay with the same brand? Are they going to move to a different brand? Or are they going to quit the category altogether? So in that instance, a survey really was our best bet. The second reason I would use a survey most often is to test something that needs to stay top secret. A lot of times I have brands or clients that are working on a new prototype and they don't want to put it out there for wide customer feedback because they are concerned that the competition is going to get wind of it. And so we will do a controlled survey among a certain number, a smaller number of customers to get that feedback so that it stays top secret. And the third reason I would use a survey is if I'm trying to understand current purchase drivers and current frustrations. So your customers are really good about telling you what's bugging them today, not so much about what's going to bug them in the future. So this next thing that I'm going to talk about is the number one reason you will never find me arguing about politics. And it's called confirmation bias. And that is a fancy way of saying that humans are really good at accepting information that confirms our existing beliefs, our existing knowledge. We are not good at accepting new information that goes against our beliefs. And so what happens a lot of times with teams as they're going through their customer feedback is they're likely to accept the information that agrees with the belief they already have, which means they're also likely to reject anything that stands against those beliefs. And so that leads to a very dangerous situation where you are cherry picking the data and only paying attention to what supports your brand narrative or your idea and ignoring any other facts. And so that can lead to alienating your customer base. I think Cracker Barrel is a really good recent example of that, where they were so focused on how they needed to innovate that they completely ignored the voice of their tried and true customer base. And so that resulted in quite a lot of money lost for them over just a couple of days because they were not listening to their customers in totality. And 64% of customers say that they are likely to switch brands if they have a negative customer experience. So you are literally forcing your customers out of the door when you don't listen to them. So instead, use multiple data sources. So make sure that you are not cherry picking the data, that you are looking at the data in totality as a whole to understand what aligns with your assumptions and your beliefs, and also what doesn't align. So we talked about bias in research interpretation. Now let's talk about bias in research itself. By doing research on your customers, you can actually change their responses. And there's actually people who sometimes become professional survey takers because they know that they can get some pocket change. And so you want to be really careful in how you recruit people to your survey and how you design that research to eliminate bias. And so one of the things that I do is I'm very careful about how I phrase the question. So I like to use very open-ended questions, and I like to start with broad topics. For example, I was recently doing some interviews on how a business could improve their customer experience and their operations. And I was actually interviewing their employees to understand where those internal frustrations might be. And I started the interview with really broad questions for a reason, to see if there were some pain points that would naturally rise to the top of the conversation without me seeding the thought of, tell me about all the negative customer interactions you've had. No, we start with a broad question of, what do you really like about this organization? And what is it like for you interacting with your customers, to see where that conversation goes naturally? And that's one of the tools that I use so that I'm not biasing the respondent and changing their behavior by asking them questions. Another way that the research itself can be biased, the research design, is giving the context. So when you are buying something, you're usually in a state of mind. So the example I like to give is, if you ask me here in my office, what is the best thing for me to order from fast food? I would say I'm going to get a salad or a chicken wrap because I know that that's going to fuel my body and give me long, sustainable energy. Okay, that's the rational answer. Now, fast forward to dinner time and you ask me while I'm standing in McDonald's what my fast food order is going to be. It's going to be totally different. I'm going for the French fries, okay? Because I am hungry and the context has changed. And so that's just a silly example, but when you're asking your customers how likely they are to purchase something, you want to put them in that mindset of the purchase. So one really good example of this is something called shop-alongs or ethnography, where we actually go with the customers to do this experience. We are in the grocery store with them. We are in the convenience store with them, watching them as they are making this decision so that we can mimic what that context is, and we're not relying on their prettied up responses through a survey. So all of these are just some tools and tricks that I like to use to remove bias from the research design itself. Hey, if this is helping you rethink how you do customer insights, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Regularly, I am making videos like this with my tips and tricks to help make research easier and help make business decisions faster. So if this is something that you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe and stay one step ahead. Okay, so hands down, the hardest part of market research is the gold standard in market research. It's something called triangulation. And it's a fancy word for combining multiple data sets to get a holistic picture. And so what that is looking at multiple data sets to answer what happened, why did it happen, and what's going to happen next for your business. So behavioral data will answer what happened. So looking at repeat purchases or click-through rates will tell you what happened. But Combining that with interviews or surveys will tell you why it happened. You get into what was the mindset going on behind those clicks, or what was the emotional reason someone made a purchase through interviews and surveys. And the last part of that is predictive analytics. So using that data of what happened, why it happened, to make predictions on what's going to happen in the future. The gold standard, best way to interpret results in a holistic fashion, but also hands down the most difficult part of the job, because every data set has its own bias that needs to be accounted for. So every new piece of information that you get, you need to understand where it came from, what was influencing it. And a really good example of that is numerator data is something that I really like to use. And the way it works is it's collecting receipts. So every time I go shop at Walmart, it's collecting my Walmart receipts. I can scan it in the app and it knows what I bought, when I bought it, and what other things were also in my shopping cart. So really meaningful data. The problem with it is most of the people who are shopping for a household are going to be women. And so if you're a brand that needs to understand the purchase behaviors of men, that data set is not going to be as relevant for you. And so add that for every additional bit of information that you get, you need to understand the biases that come along with it and build that into your interpretation. So that's why it's really difficult to do. But the point is, when you look at what happened, why it happened, and what's going to happen next, and create that more holistic picture, that's when you get to really smart decisions for your business. Okay, listen, product marketers needing to prove return on investment for each marketing campaign, I need you to listen to this. We live in 2025, where A/B testing is now integrated into Facebook ads and a lot of other digital marketing tools. There is no reason for you to be running off of assumptions. Choose a holdout group, a control, and A/B test every assumption. Here's what I mean. If you need to make a decision between a yellow call to action button or an orange call to action button, you can do that. You don't have to make a guess. Split your sample in half. Have one test group go through the A format with the yellow button. Have half of your sample, the other half, go through with an orange button, and compare the results. It is so simple and integrated into so many different systems now. You don't have to run off of assumptions. So this week, I am challenging you to think through, what assumption am I running off of that I could just validate in 48 hours? That'll prove your ROI. Just remember to have your control group. So now I'm going to say the thing that most product marketers get wrong. They are so busy trying to take in all of the customer feedback, take in the feedback from engineering, take in the feedback from product, from brands, that they don't stop and think about, what does this all mean? How do they fit together, or how do they not fit together? And so that is really where my firm comes in. So we take a holistic approach to research design, where we are finding out the what happened with your customers and the why by combining ethnography, interviews, and behavioral data to get that holistic picture. No more assumptions, no more guessing. We are going to find out and make strong business decisions from that data. So I used this approach with a founder who was about to launch a Facebook ad campaign. And instead of A/B testing their way through every possible combination, we looked at the data. And with click-through rates and interviews, we were able to point them into 1 or 2 different ad creatives that they could use to drive the most value for their brand. So we were able to solve this for them using the research, and it saved them time and money and effort of having to A/B test each and every one of those combinations. So all that to say, When you are designing your customer research, make sure that it addresses that holistic picture. What's happening? Why is it happening? And what do you expect to happen in the future for your business? So now you know that customer research can lie. And by watching this video, you figured out how to separate what your customers say from what they actually do. If you're ready to go deeper, YouTube has a video for you on how to take that next step. Go ahead and click it, and let's keep building.